Alan's here to talk about his experience as a Life College parent.
It's really great to be up here surrounded by all these MLC supporters. There is a lot of love in this room, and hopefully by the end of the evening, a lot less cash. I have 6 children, and one thing I've done with all of them when they were little is when they were giving me one of those little tight hugs, I would pray, Lord Jesus, please let me never, ever, ever forget this. That was real important, especially for my second child, Jacob, because when he turned about 5, Jacob stopped giving hugs. I have not been hugged by my son for almost 20 years now. You can make him give you a hug, but he won't offer one freely. That was the Asperger's coming out in Jacob. But there were some really cool things happening too. About the same time in kindergarten, Jacob wrote out his numbers on an 11-inch by 17-inch piece of paper from 1 to 5,000 as a kindergartner. But that's not what's amazing. What's amazing is he did it in Roman numerals. So Asperger's for Jacob is very strong mathematical skills and a little bit weaker on the social and communication skills. He wouldn't be diagnosed with Asperger's until he's 19 years old, and a large part of that was because he went to a Christian day school where the teachers bent over backwards for Jacob, and he really excelled. In the state test, he always got in the 90th percentile and many times in the over 100th percentile. He's a really smart guy. High school didn't go quite as well for him. He had to write paragraphs and essays, but he did graduate. He graduated with about 2 or 3 friends, which he quickly lost because he lacks those social and communication skills. And the following year, we sent him to the area college by our home. He didn't have an IEP. He was not diagnosed Asperger's yet. And in college, they don't bend over backwards for anybody. And so at the end of the year, he was not allowed back. His grade point average was way too low. So we sent him to find a job, got him hooked up with Workforce, and they've got specially trained people there to get people with disabilities into work, but it just didn't work out for Jacob. They couldn't place him anywhere. So a year after graduation, he was friendless, jobless, and uneducatable. And in Jacob's own poetic words, he says, I don't know what happened. My river just ended. There are a lot of things going on in Jacob's life, none of them that he really was responsible for, but sometimes life just happens again and again. When Jacob was in high school, his little brother got cancer, childhood leukemia. And for the first time in Jacob's life, he was no longer getting the lion's share of mom and dad's attention. It was all going to his little brother, Zach, because Zach was a very sick little guy. His treatment lasted 3.5 years, and in those 3.5 years, Jacob kind of fell through the cracks, and he landed really hard. It was Thanksgiving his sophomore year. I went downstairs to get him up for the meal, and I found him on the basement floor, curled up in the fetal position, and I couldn't get him up. That Thanksgiving, we went to the psychiatric ward. He didn't come out for 3 weeks, diagnosed with severe depression. But at the same time, we were going to these Brighter Tomorrows cancer support groups, and we met this wonderful couple, Lance and Janet Johnson. They were there for their son, Axel, and that's where we met Josie Johnson, beautiful young woman. She was attending MLC. That's where we found out that MLC was basically made for our Jacob. We didn't even know what it was until then, but it was made for Jacob. And so we went up there, visited the campus. Kind of spendy, but they had scholarships. Still kind of spendy, but Grandma said she would help us out. Still spendy, but Deb and I talked it over. Says, this is Jacob. We got to give him a chance at life. We're going for it. And so we went for it. Everybody except Jacob. Jacob would not sign the papers. He's a little stinker. So Jacob had heard about a program through the state called a Room and Board. They offer everything that MLC does, but they can't deliver it because they're grossly understaffed. And the only one getting any attention is the squeaky wheel. But Jacob does not squeak. So at the end of 9 months, he came home, again, a very broken young man. I remember talking with him, you know, at the end of the summer, your brothers and sisters, they're going to go off to school again. You can go back to the room and board? No. MLC? No. Well, you're always welcome to stay with mom and dad. I'd rather live under a bridge. So we kept on encouraging MLC, MLC, MLC. At the very end of the summer, he finally signed the papers. This is really good. I call up Amy. It's not even a week before classes start, maybe 5 days. Amy, Jacob signed the papers. Can we get him in? And that scholarship's real important. Deadline for scholarships is April. This is August. Amy breaks every pre-registration rule they have at MLC. She gets him online, gets him the scholarship, gets him the apartment. He doesn't miss a beat because Amy is a rebel. And my wife goes up a week later because, believe it or not, Jacob forgot a couple things. And they're at the store, and Deb calls me and says, Ellen, Jacob is walking with me. You see, because of his depression, he did everything in slow motion, but he was actually walking with her. That means Jacob is experiencing something new in his life. He's excited. I got to come up a couple weeks after that with Deb, and Jacob's in the back seat, and he's chattering, and he's making jokes. Now, maybe it doesn't sound like that much. He's just walking, and he's talking. But this is absolutely huge. MLC did for my son in a matter of weeks what Deb and I had been trying to do for him for years. And so I have to give a big thank you. A big thank you to Catherine Thomas. I don't know if anyone ever calls you Katie or Kate, but I will always call you Catherine Thomas. I've got too much respect for you. You're a beautiful woman. I want to thank Rebel Amy and Rich and Karen and Ashley and Lori and a bunch of people whose names I can't remember. And I really want to thank the MLC supporters. You are an invaluable quotient to Jacob's equation. And let me tell you, his river is flowing again. Thank you.